Please join me in welcoming our director, David Petersen, and Steven Melendez, the new artistic director of New York Theater Ballet, Diana Byer, the founder of New York Theater Ballet.
In 1989, Schuyler Chapin, who is the commissioner at the Department of Cultural Affairs, had this great idea about bringing children from different shelters around the city to different arts organizations, and New York Theater Ballet was one of those organizations. So the children came, there were 30 children that came, and we had a hot breakfast and a dance lesson and reading and vocabulary with teachers, and then a hot lunch. And then we had an extra room, and I made it like a bookstore. We had 3,000 books, so each child could have 20 books each day to take home for their siblings, themselves, and their mothers. And I always felt personally that if you choose art for your career, you should do something social, because art is for someone else. It's for the audience to watch dance, or a person to read a book, or someone to look at your painting. So it was important to me to do something social, and Schuyler Chapin had this great idea because I didn't know what to do. And after I had done it the first year, I thought, wait a minute, there's a flaw in this program, because the children only have it for that 1 week during their Christmas break. It was during a Christmas break that the children were bused to the arts organization. So I thought, there's this flaw, and how can you give the children 1 week of something that is so fantastic and then take it away? And those kids, their whole life, everybody's taking something away. So that's how LIFT started, and we started the scholarship program. So my first question is for David. These are the Children's Resilience in Film Awards. How would you define resilience, and how do you think the cast demonstrated resilience during the filming, but also after the filming? Hard. It's a hard question.
I'd say the biggest resilience is probably putting up with a filmmaker for 11 years in their lives. But of course, you saw only a glimpse of their lives in the film, and the resilience of dealing with home insecurity, not knowing, where your next meal is coming from, not knowing if your electricity is going to be cut off, all of those things, while still finding the urge to dance. And I think that is astonishing. And it's really something that I had the privilege to witness for 11 years. So, and it's still going on, when I first met you and Steven, this was, I met Victor at 10. How would I ever predict that 1 out of 1 million kids makes it to the New York City Ballet in the Corps de Ballet? I mean, it's just never what I thought. But, Diana said, this kid's pretty good. Watch him. And when I met Steven, of course, Steven said, yeah, take a look at him. And of course, I was, of course, drawn to Steven because I knew that he had danced all over the world, and he was coming back in a way, to pay something back, I think. Ultimately, that's what we sort of discovered through the filming.
My next question is for Steven. Do you feel that being in the LIFT program changed the direction of your life? And if so, in what ways, but besides becoming a professional dancer?
Yes. Yes. Something that I'm realizing now is the distinction between how I see myself in the world and how other people see me. And I'm not sure that I would have had the opportunity to recognize that those are not always the same thing. Growing up as a young person, living in the shelter, it was, well, just to the question before about resilience. For me, it was normal. That was my life. There isn't a way for me to have known that I was demonstrating resilience by going to the dance studio every day. It was just the way it was. And similarly, then there was a part of who I was that that I did know at the moment, at that time, was my own. It was private. You know, you go into the ballet studio, for example, and I didn't talk about where I came from. The other kids didn't talk about where they came from. It sort of didn't matter. But it didn't matter in a different way for me. Not only did it not matter, but it was something that I was actively trying to hide. And now as an adult person, my relationship with what parts of myself I'm trying to hide and what parts of myself actually don't matter, what parts of myself do matter, what parts of myself other people paint onto me because of what they think about me. It's changed, not just so the question, being part of the LIFT program isn't just about changing the outcome of my life, but also about how I understand the world around me.
My next question, kind of my favorite question. Okay, David, when did you first learn about New York Theater Ballet's LIFT program, and what made you decide to make a documentary about it? And this is my favorite story.
And it's got two words.
It's really funny.
The dog park.
Yeah.
So I meet all my filmmaker friends in the dog park. I had a lovely, beautiful white shepherd named Maya, who I met Nickleby, another dog, who was owned by Richard Termini. And Richard Termini was the photographer for the New York Times, and he'd been photographing New York Theater Ballet for years. And he said, Dave, you'd just seen a film that I made about an opera, a Chinese American opera. And he said, Dave, I got a great idea for a film, these kids, they're homeless. One kid became an international dancer, and they're really doing stuff over there, and they've been doing it for 20 years. And I said, okay, where's the money? And he said, I don't have any money, but, you should look at it. There's a Times article. I said, well, I'll go down there, with a camera, and I got a camera at least. So I go down there and I meet, and that's it. I got hooked. I met Steven, I met Victor, I met, of course, Diana, and I thought there's a story here. But it only took me 11 years to finish it. So don't go to the dog park.
This is for both of you. What is it that you want audiences to walk away with after viewing LIFT? Important question, I think.
I want to hear from Steven.
There's something about youth development that just as a concept, New York Theater Ballet does it through arts education, but other programs do it through other things. It's a karate school or a little league or whatever the thing is. That is difficult to understand as a snapshot. It's difficult to hear the pitch from the executive director and attend one performance or one game or one karate, whatever they do, I don't know. And to understand really the impact of what it means to be in the field of youth development. And we were lucky to have David following us around for 11 years. And so the film we've made, I think, can serve as a sort of aggregate average testimonial for the kinds of incredible work that's being done in the small army of youth development organizations across the country. Not all of them maybe are working with homeless kids. Not all of them are using dance as their medium to impart this life-changing, these skills that the young people are learning or developing. But all of them are doing equally important work. And I think that if this film can be used to tell as testimony to those stories, that would be the most incredible thing.
David?
Let's repeat the question. Oh, what do you want people to come away with? That everyone is equal on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And that everyone is equal either on the dance floor or on a canvas or, in an orchestra pit or, in a rock and roll band. That these children and children like them across the country and children across the world need the arts. And for homeless kids, art is as important and vital in the Maslow hierarchy of needs as shelter. And I think that that's the one thing we don't recognize so much in our educational system. So I want them to
Yeah,
think
I
that.
want to say for me, you know, I've been doing this a long time. And what I've come to realize is nowadays, especially nowadays, every arts organization has scholarships for poor children, but not for homeless children.
Yeah.
People don't want homeless children in their school. Why? Everybody comes with a problem. I have a school. Every kid has some kind of a problem. These are maybe different problems, but the children, they're smart. Some have talent. They should be included. And I think it's this funny preconceived idea of what homelessness is, and it's not correct. And I'm hoping the film can help that maybe other arts organizations across the country will open up to 2 children or 3 children, then all of a sudden understand that it's just like another problem. Just deal with it, you know? And
Yeah.
the one thing is it has to be more one-on-one. And you can't do big numbers, but that's what I hope.
I was going to ask you, what kept you going for 40 odd years?
44 years.
44 years. And let me just tell you something. She's not going to tell you this, but she mortgaged her apartment.
No. We don't talk
Okay,
about that.
right,
Thank
see,
you. That's
well,
not
anyway,
to talk about.
she made great sacrifices. Let
But-
me just say that to keep these children dancing and to keep the company running.
Thank you. Thank you. But I have a question, another one for both of you. What were the greatest challenges you faced while making the documentary? For me, it was 11 years. I thought it was going to be 3 months. When David came, I thought, yeah, this would be fun. 3 months, why not?
I said you were married to a filmmaker at one time. You
Yeah,
know,
I
you got
was.
to.
I
you
was.
knew it'd take longer than.
No, I really did.
Yeah, yeah.
The most difficult thing about this film over 11 years. David is an artist, and I'm an artist, and that brings personalities. And I think that not difficult in a bad way, just it's an interesting thing to have the conversations that arise when 2 artists are talking, and when the conversations are about real life, the way the best conversations are. It's difficult to confront what you want the world to be and what the world actually is. And so, not in a bad way, but David challenging me to recognize the world the way it is. I'm much younger than him, I think.
Not that much younger.
Was a learning opportunity for me, and I really appreciated that opportunity, but it wasn't an easy one.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing for me was to part from it. You know, to just sort of look away from the canvas, because I could also, even now, I'm just looking at this. I said, you know, if I brought that shot a little bit tighter, you know, if I just brought that, you know, this, I got to go back to the sound mix.
No.
Steven, do you think we could do some little interview that we, no, but you know what I mean? It's very hard, especially, it's like a child, you know, you don't want to put it on the bus, you know, and it's about to go on the bus. And it's, you know, the film is about to go on the bus to theaters and somewhere, you know, we were about to distribute it. And that's the hardest thing to part from it. And apart from these friends who are been part of my life.
But we'll always be friends.
I know.
I have one question for Steven. As New York Theater Ballet's new artistic director, what vision do you have for the LIFT program? And do you plan to make any changes or tweaks to the program?
Be careful, Steven.
Yes.
I think that I know now what worked for me, and I think I know why it worked for me. You know, people talk nowadays about EDIA, equity, diversity, inclusion, and the last word there I think is the most important word. It's accessibility. You know, last night I was having a conversation, and someone synonymed that word with exposure. For me, if not for the access to a program like this, if not for the exposure to a program like this, I would never. I was a Puerto Rican boy in the South Bronx with a single mother. That just wasn't a thing. Ballet was not a thing. If not for the access and exposure that the LIFT program offered, I wouldn't have even known that this world existed, classical dance existed. And so this is not a change to LIFT, but an expansion of the idea. I think that New York Theater Ballet, the performing company, the professional company, needs to be missioned to include the idea of exposing as many people, not just children because of the scene in this film where you watch the adult people recognize.
Love that.
You can see the moment where they go, I understand why this is important for my kid to do. And that moment for the adult people in the world, my mother in the world, who need to be explained why the fantastic arts program that the kid does in the public school or in LIFT or in whatever it is important. Because without their support, without the support of the adults who need their mind changed a little bit, the kids don't have a chance. So New York Theater Ballet is a professional foreign company. The expansion of LIFT is to ensure that we are actively seeking new to dance audiences to make sure that the adults of the world appreciate the work that we're doing with the children.
So,
Drop the mic.
Just before we open it up to you, I do want to read a poem that was written by 9-year-old Marissa Nieves, and she was one of my first LIFT children. Her dream was to become a novelist, and this always brings a tear to my eye. Her poem is called The Homeless Shuffle. Come on, here we go. Don't sit down and rest. Soon you'll be in the middle of a jumbled, shattered mess. Once you settle down, start to go to school, they move you again and again and treat you as their tool. Since they aren't better than anybody, they try to be better than you. They make you do the homeless shuffle, and at the same time, they try to muffle your cries for help in the darkness of reality. She was 9 years old when she wrote that.
That's resilience.
Yeah. So let's open it up.
Thank you. I love the film. What I discovered watching it, I came to see a film about children who did not have stable shelter. And what evolved probably at the midpoint of the film, which was so striking for me, was when Victor said, when he was accepted to the American Ballet program, that he was leaving home. So what was another insight into their resilience was home wasn't a stable roof over your head. Home was actually a feeling of connectedness with self and with a community. It's sort of that expression like how to make a house a home. You know, it's more than just the roof. It's really the community, the sense of belonging, the connectedness with self and others. So I thought that was very interesting and beautiful and so insightful. And it was said so simply, and you know, but it really gave new meaning for me.
One thing about LIFT is that no one knows who comes from a shelter in the program. It's quiet. It's a safe haven. Children can just be who they are without worrying that, oh gosh, I'm from a shelter. Nobody's going to like me.
Yeah.
You know.
And that sense of safety and belonging that he felt. Yeah. So the program became not just a place to learn dance, but actually a home. Yeah.
It's, something that I learned recently that I'll share with all of you is an acronym, MAMA, M-A-M-A. It means a meaningful activity with a meaningful adult. Dance is the activity, and I am, or Diana is, or whomever is running the program is the meaningful adult. And that, I think, is what makes it so that it's a home.
Thank you so much. It was lovely, amazing documentary. I was watching the movie, and one of the part that made me think about was the difficulty that you go through when you help these kids during the program. because, as Diana was saying in one of the scenes, you have to follow up. You are the one that you have to keep an eye on them, and if they drop the program, they're part of because these kids becomes your family, and you cannot just let them go. So it was amazing, all the things that you were doing, and I was just reflecting, what was the which one actually is the big frustration that you have, that you feel inside when you try to kind of rescue and give them an opportunity because they're talented, because they deserve an opportunity as everybody else, and you see, sometimes you see that you're not able to do what you want, so they leave, they drop for several reasons, as we watched. So which one is your big frustration you feel when you have that, and also a big challenge, right, that you have to face with? Because the feeling that I am pretty sure I'm not the only one. It's just that I want to get up and they say, "Hey, Steve, let's go and help. Just tell me what to do." And then I really want to be part of this, but it's not easy, because it's not just that you take them and you teach them, but you really have you become part of the family and part of the problems, because you have to face their problem, and of course you were in their life, but sometimes people that they have different life, right? It's very difficult to understand.
It's interesting.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you, Stephen, bring that point. Like, how was it to experience some of the struggles that you went through them?
Maybe these are two slightly different questions, but for me, and Diana has much more experience than I do, and so she may have a different idea. But for me, the most frustrating problem that I have had presented to me is a parent or an adult guardian who makes decisions that I can't say anything about, and whom it is clear to me I won't change their mind. And with the children, they're young, and you can teach them, and you can show them, and you can role model for them. And when in the dance studio, when it comes to the end of it, you can just tell them what to do because they're a kid, and that's the way it is. But with a parent who just doesn't get it, who can't make the connection between the value of what's happening and what they need to do to make it happen, and who they can't see the payoff for it at the end. And don't misunderstand, I don't mean parents who have some obstacle that they can't overcome. What I'm talking about is a parent who has chosen that this is not the answer for them. That breaks my heart more than anything. But maybe you have a different idea.
I don't know. Life is hard for everybody. And I think you just have to, LIFT is not going to save every child. No program is going to save every child. So you have to kind of harden your heart and do what you can for the children that you can help, or the families that you can help, and the ones that can't manage it, then you have to move on. And it took me a long time to come to that kind of a little bit hard in the heart.
Amazing, uplifting, way in the back.
Oh yeah.
I have to say, even the title "Lift" for the program, and then the film, just makes me sore. And that's just a comment, but that just makes me feel that way. David, you've been great in your films. You establish intimacy with your subjects, but these subjects are tough. This population must have been tough, and I know 11 years, maybe that's how you did it, but how did you establish that trust as a director with this population, which is so tough to do?
Yeah.
And congratulations
Yeah, I mean,
on doing it, because you drew them out so beautifully.
I think there just is this kind of love and respect that I have for the families and for the children, and actually for, you know, Diana and Steven. Um, I think it starts with that, and it starts with my education because they're teaching me. You know, I can't come to this with my story. It's not my story, but I can ask them and then they become collaborators. So little Shariah, you know, she's 8 years old and she came up with that step, right? And Steve says, "Oh, it's interesting. What's that?" He's strong, you know. And of course, you know, and that and in a way, you know, as long as I'm um a mindful observer, you know, just willing to accept the gifts that these children are giving me, then I'll answer it back with something truthful in film. You know, so I think this is a collection of all these things are a collection of moments, beautiful little moments. And that was my task, I think, struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling and editing and trying to is that capture those truthful moments, those human moments. That's all it is. You know, if I had no narrative, it's okay. You know, if I have those moments though, where Shariah is just, you know, and that moment where Stephen is saying, "You're going to end up," you know, like just like all of that's the thing that all of us face from the communities we come from. You know, those moments are you, you just have to be attentive and be and patient. It's totally patient.
I really want to thank you. Hey, David. Congratulations. Such a beautiful and powerful movie film for me. I want to thank you, Stephen, for the work you're doing. The most powerful moment for me, and I started just started crying and I couldn't stop afterwards, was when the parents, like you gave that moment for the parents. Because growing up as a refugee kid and choosing art, you know, and it's a painful choice that we make, but the moment that the parents kind of understand what it is that we're trying to do, that was so powerful for me. So I really want to thank you that even though it was a story about the children, I think that the parents' participation was such an important place, such an important role, and for you to give that time to Shariah's dad, you know, it was magical for me. Um, but you know, so I wanted to ask you, sort of like, how did you choose, like after 11 years of shooting, how did you choose what makes it into the film, right? And then were there other dancers that you followed that you know that you're like, okay, but we have to focus on these three?
We kept the good bits. We got rid of the boring bits. No, it was difficult. You know, there were a lot of time signature problems. You know, lots of things that we had because I was filming Victor. I met Victor when he was 10, and then, you know, and then I didn't meet Yolansi and Shariah until later, and so I had to sort of deal with that Victor's in a sort of parallel time-space universe for a little while, but then they meet up truly and they connect and converge. So, and it felt like, well, the narrative of them growing up all at the same age was, you know, very important. But that just the editing and confluence of that woven basket was very difficult. And then emphasis, you know, just there are beautiful moments that I think, why isn't that in? You know, why did I cut that out? You know, well, you know, it's emphasis. You know, if you can have too much of one thing and then it dilutes the other thing. And I think my terror was to show it to Diana and Steven, not together. They were watching separately. And I was like, oh, what is it? And I remember, and Steven was in New Mexico. And so, you know, we did it on Zoom and he turned off his button so I couldn't see his face. Damn him, you know. I had no indication. So watching the whole film that I've seen 300 times, and I can't see what how he's reacting, and so it's just light credits finished, and then I said, "So, Steven," and he taught me a lot about what it's like to see your life, that you've probably never seen all put together. I mean, it was quite moving, his reaction. And the same with Diana. Now, Diana's put 44 years into this. So she's seen, this is her incredible legacy. And I was also terrified, but at least I got to see her face. It's a little better indication. And again, Diana's reaction was so entirely moving, that of a true artist. Both of them reacted as artists. And I think that, going back to that idea of how did you finally collaborate, or how did you finally figure out what, it's kind of what Emily Dickinson said, tell the truth, but tell it slant, tell it with your own voice, but it's still a collaboration. These are both wonderful artists. And so I knew that they were wonderful artists. So I said, guys, we're going to do this together, for better or worse. But I always had in my head kind of they're looking finally at the film. And I said, okay, that's bullshit. Get that out, But because Steven wouldn't like that, Diana would just, so in a way, and also the children, I was aware that they were going to watch it. And so I just said, just be truthful. Yeah, the couple dropped out, right? We had Denisha, and then, we had Angelina, and, we had a couple
But
of kids.
Also Tiffany was around.
Tiffany
in the
was
beginning.
around. Yes,
the children,
Tiffany, right.
They kind of stopped coming to the program because they graduated high school and went on to their careers. So children that were in the beginning weren't in the end. It was 11 years.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing that, I said I've failed many times. I said I've failed in this film because I haven't captured, I should have captured these other kids, or I should have captured Tiffany, when, because I was filming her first when I was filming Victor, but I didn't really recognize her and her remarkable story that she told me. You don't even know who Tiffany is, right? But I have.
She was in the
but
last piece.
Yeah, and she's in the last piece. She's that wonderful, like, really sorrowful face, that's actually grabbing Khalil's hand, and so moving.
Tiffany was from a battered women's shelter.
Yeah, and she gave an extraordinary interview. I did these interviews, not a lot of interviews in this film, and I said, oh my God, that's got to be on the DVD. But they don't have DVDs, so, or put it on the website or something. But really, and she spoken, on behalf of Lyft and on behalf of the film too. So, I don't know, that's a long answer, Ham. But I think the conscious awareness that they were going to see it and that they are truth tellers. Yeah.
Hi. I have a question mostly for Steven, but it's, what is your favorite part about dance?
Wow, a good question.
That's a good question, but I have a really, really easy answer. Dance, I think of dance as a language, and it's a language that we're all born speaking. It just takes a little bit of time to flesh out exactly what the vocabulary is. And the benefit of being fluent in the language of dance or the language of movement is that you have the gift of a significantly wider vocabulary than you could ever have with spoken words. And I think that's really, really special. I think that being able to communicate with the whole world who speaks this language, doesn't matter where you're from, in ways that you couldn't possibly put into words, will ultimately be what brings us all together. And I'm really, really, really honored to be part of that tradition.
Good answer.
So we have time for one last question.
Hi. Steven, I think the most powerful for me part was when you sat down with Yolanda. I think you saved her life. You spoke to her like a father. And I thought that was That was so powerful, and I think you changed her life.
Maybe that's true. I don't know. I think one of the, I talked earlier about youth development programs. I think that one of the pitfalls of working with children who maybe come from unusual backgrounds or circumstances is to treat them like a child. Honestly, I think often when you grow up in difficult circumstances, you mature much faster than a normal child does, and there's something sad about that. That you've lost your childhood a little bit, you've lost the innocence or the naivete that comes with youth. But the result, if you are given the agency to take care of yourself and to think for yourself and to be treated like an adult person, a mature person who can make intelligent decisions, is that you become a really fantastic young adult and a really powerful adult because you have so many more years of experience behind you. And so I hope that Yolanti will take that with her, but she's still just a teenager now, so we'll see how that goes.
I have to tell you that she came to the last screening at the Tribeca Film Festival, and we had the film was very popular, and they added a fourth screening, and she couldn't come for all kinds of reasons, but she could come to the fourth screening, but she arrived like 30 minutes late, and I was really worried, But you know what? She came, and people asked questions, and there was a woman from the Bronx who said, "Hey, I recognize your story, and I'm feeling really in trouble right now. What would be your advice?" And Yolansi said, "I tried a lot of doors, and a lot of them were bad doors, but I had to open them. But you just keep opening other doors. And I found dance, and I found Steven, and that was an open door. And I'm telling you, wait for that door." So that's Yolansi.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, David, Diana, and Steven. Thank you all for coming.